July 15th, 2020, Joe here at the Wake Up Channel. CNN has recently done a story about an artist that has replaced a slave trader, Edward Colston, back in June, and replaced it with another statue of a Black Lives Matter protester. And here it is. So this was put up here recently. The first thing that I really see when I see this is, obviously a strong woman, right? It looks very Black Panther. It looks very, now I'm not sure if this is a beret or not, but it almost looks like a revolutionary, right? Someone that was, fighting for some sort of ideology or something like that. It looks, that's just my first impression of this. I don't know the woman personally, obviously, but this is just another statue that's been put up in its place. Now we have this idea, at least those who are protesting, that statues are evil, right? At least those that do not share the same or did not share the same moral aptitude that we share hundreds of years later in some instances. So we are, or at least we have the, and I say we, I mean the protesters, those who are tearing down these statues. In a lot of the instances, they are tearing down statues of people who actually fought for emancipation, people who actually were integral into their own revolutionary type of movements. So a lot of this is just, I see as a lot of random violence. A lot of these people are wanting change so desperately that they will destroy everything in their past. So really the question is, and the reason why I'm making this video, it's really about moral relativism and whether that is something that really needs to be discussed. Is it something that is at the heart of all this? I believe it is. And I think this is going to be a very important stream of thought and something to really think about for years to come as a society. So really the question at the heart of everything is, how do we as a society in this world reconcile the errors of our past as we see them right now in 2020? So we are trying to reconcile the errors of our past in 2020 from what happened in the 16, 17, 1800s, and 1900s, obviously, as well. So we are trying to base everything that we know now, and we are judging other people based on what we know now. The question, of course, is, will this statue of this brave woman, this brave protester, be torn down 100 years from now based on some information that we don't know now? The question obviously is that did people during those times, did they know slavery was wrong? Some might argue that they were living within their times, that it was a legal thing to do, that it was just something that had to, not had to be done. It was just something that was acceptable. Some people argue that the people in Germany kind of went along with everything with Adolf Hitler and his treatment of minorities and Jews. It was just something that was acceptable. We have seen this throughout history. It's not something that just happened in the United States. And like I have talked about over and over again, America has learned from her ills, has learned from the mistakes of the past, and has always been trying to do better. But for some reason, that is simply not good enough. We have to tear everything down, and we have to rebuild. I just don't believe that is something that will be good and moral thing to do, because it is disreminding us of where we have really come from and how far we have come, for that matter. So the whole real statement is this: is how do we as a society in this world reconcile the errors of the past as we see them right now? Some people stop at the beginning. They say, well, how do we reconcile the errors? And they go out and they protest and they tear statues down. But they forget to understand it's as we see them right now. Time is a stream, and we will be judged inevitably by those who come after us by what we do now. Maybe our own statues will come down. Maybe no one will ever learn from the past. If we start doing this and we continue to do this, and we continue this act of destroying everything, burning books, tearing down statues, erasing everything from history so we don't have to be bothered by it, by our delicate and fragile sensibilities and our fragile egos. What this really has to come down to is a simple question of moral relativism, or it could be objective morality. Now, there is a continuing war between objective morality and those who subscribe to moral relativism. Those who subscribe to moral relativism are usually evolutionists. They are atheists. They are, I'm not saying they're all that, but I'm saying that they fit in the same type of mold. Those are the types of people that believe that we are nothing more than animated meat bags, that everything we do is just a chemical process. It is just simply a chemical process. So those types of people, and I would argue that a lot of the people that are on the left, the type of people that are embracing this Marxist ideology, are those who are moral relativists. My way is the right way right now. Later on, it might change, and we'll just have to change it with it. Those who actually subscribe to those ideologies and those philosophies have nothing to say of Hitler, because Hitler lived during a different time. Hitler, especially those who were an adherents of Hitler's philosophy, and the people of Germany kind of went along, and many of them loved Hitler. They loved him. They loved what he was doing. Now, we can all agree in 2020 what Hitler did was wrong. He listened to the wrong people, and he did a lot of really bad and evil things. And now he's dead. We don't have statues erected of Hitler. That's understandable. So many people are saying, and they're using that type of logic to say, well, we need to tear down every statue. Well, I would argue that we should just not put up any statues at all. Why just have an argument over that? Why even have this statue? Because 100 years from now, someone's going to go through her Twitter feed, and they're going to find something that's questionable, and her statue is going to come down. She might be doing evil things that might be considered evil in 2100 or 2120, and they will tear down her statue, and of course her descendants will feel all sad. But who cares at that point, because we live in a moral relativist universe. So that really is the question. We can say these things now. We can have these discussions because, we can look back in time and we can see these things that were wrong by today's standards. It's very easy to do that. But like I said, 100 years from now, our morals might be different. I would argue that they wouldn't be worse, but they could very well be. But we all have this idea that's written on our hearts of what is truly right and what is truly wrong. But humans have always acted out of selfish desire. It is something that is our crutch. It is hardwired into who we are as human beings. We have always lived for ourselves and our own selfish interest. But the flip side of that coin is that we also have something inside of us that is urging us into a better type of a better type of way of living, and how we treat others around us. We are always trying to get better. And that is what I would propose that we truly need to focus on, rather than statues or looking into the past and grading our ancestors based on what they knew at that time, because we are not even grading ourselves on what we know in this time. We are constantly looking to the future and the past at the same time without looking at the present, and that's why we are currently going nowhere. It is very common to find a lot of these protesters follow the adherents and adhere to the philosophies of Karl Marx. The leaders of Black Lives Matter, and I know I'm not trying to pick on them, but I do pick on them, they are trained Marxists, and they have said so, and I've said it over and over. And if you don't know that by now, then you need to really understand what Black Lives Matter is all about. It is a philosophy, it's an ideology, it's a movement. It's a movement towards what they consider as a more progressive Marxism, a more progressive society that's more equitable to all and more justice. But those who scream of justice and inequality are the same moral relativists that believe that we are all animated meat bags. True. So these are very conflicting ideas. I'm not saying that every single person out there who is a Black Lives Matter activist or Antifa or someone that's simply on the left or progressive, liberal, or whatever you want to call them, I'm not saying they're all heathens. They're all atheist, and they're all moral relativists. But like I said before, we are segregated and we are put into little boxes. And unfortunately for the left, that is part of their ilk. That is part of their box that they are in. And a lot of them actually do conform to those philosophies, which are self-contradictory philosophies. And you wonder why they're so upset. You wonder why they're so confused. It's because they're living under a false ideology of moral relativism. Moral relativism is what caused the Nazis. Moral relativism is what caused the gulags in Russia. Moral relativism is what caused all of the horrors in the world. We have to seek something higher. We have to seek God and our Creator, and we have to understand that we are autonomous beings. We have the ability to make choices and become better. That is what this country is all about. It's all about not so much righting wrongs, but just becoming better as human beings and giving the other people the opportunity to better themselves, not take care of them from cradle to grave, but give them the tools that they need and the opportunities and also the push sometimes that they need to be better human beings. Not so much, not just from a moral standpoint of view, but also from just a human standpoint of view and how they interact with other people and their society. Some people just are very uneducated when it comes to certain things. And there's a difference between it being completely ignorant and being willfully uneducated. Some people don't understand also that the pyramids were made by the slaves. We see them, the pyramids, and they're all obviously a majestic sight, but they were made by slaves. The Roman Colosseum was made by slave work, at least in part. So should we tear down every single artifact of history? Because I can guarantee you the majority of them out there were made by slave work. So we should just tear down everything because of that, when we are ignoring what we should be focusing on, which is the objective morality and the objective truth that we are always trying to get closer to. We are trying to become more like God. Not God's, but more like Him and more like His image as well. But we have a problem in this society where we consider ourselves gods unto ourselves. We have this idea that might is right no matter what, and that is also part of the moral relativist credo. So we know the pyramids were made by slaves. We know that the rolling Colosseum and a lot of these other things were made by slaves. But should we tear them down because they challenge our moral sensitivities today in 2020? I would argue that tearing them down is a sign of sensitivity itself, which can become a very dangerous thing, because our strength as a society and as a people, it lies in seeing certain things as being morally reprehensible. And the more sensitive that we become, the less we will actually be able to see those things. Rather we will basically continue to congratulate ourselves like we do all the time, and how fragile we are, how much of a snowflake we are. We wear it as badges of honor, and how sensitive we are to certain things. But this is a very dangerous thing going forward. So really, at the end of the day, the real question is, should we tear down the statues of the past that are ties in some way to the morally questionable times in which these people lived? I would consider that many of these protesters, now there's a statue of one, and I'm sure that more will follow. I would consider that many of these protesters are coming from the point of view that their own sensitivities that they're experiencing right now and their own sensitivities to their environment is leading in a lot of ways to this embracement of the Marxist ideologies, where everything is considered equal, where people are taken care of from cradle to grave, because that's kind of what they want. I would also like to point out that Karl Marx, who a lot of these people do follow, it's their philosophy, that he was influenced heavily by Immanuel Kant, who was a German philosopher who lived, before him. And a lot of the things that Kant subscribed to were and are considered morally reprehensible in 2020. And not just in 2020, but before then as well. And just for instance, Kant believed that women were less than men, that they should have no positions of power, that they have no right to actually any rational thought, that men should be the only ones who do the thinking. He also believed that the killing of illegitimate children that were born out of wedlock, if they are killed, it doesn't really matter. They're less than human. They're not even in society. They're not even considered to be even in existence, considered existence by the state. He also felt that homosexuals should be put to death. This is what Immanuel Kant believed. These are these words that he wrote down a long time ago. Karl Marx picked them up, and he created Marxism. And a lot of these things were based on those ideas, at least in part, because they influenced him. So should we tear down the statues? I know I keep saying it over and over. It's not an easy answer, because we're talking about the difference between objective morality and a moral relativism. If we want to talk about moral relativism, we need to go ahead and tear down every single statue and never put another one up, because we're always going to be changing our morals. So we should not be erecting anything, for those types of people that believed in something. But if we're objective, if we believe in objective morality, where we're always trying to get better, we're always trying to get towards the objective truth and the objective morality, and we're trying to get further up that pedestal, then I would say we leave them up, because it is just another guidepost of where we have come and where we're going. We're always learning. We're consistently learning. Humans are always learning from our errors. I mean, that's if we never learned from our errors, we wouldn't have lasted so long as a species. And we do try to do what's right in the end. That is what America is all about. That's what this country is all about. And tearing down our lessons from the past is a disservice to the future and the future generations, who will be undoubtedly grading us, and they will be judging us based on what we are doing right now. So I'll leave it at that. I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.